Hi there, Shahar here from Waves again. Today I want to talk to you about the JJP Artist Signature Collection. JJP stands for Jack Joseph Puig, a very well-known producer and mixer from Los Angeles, who's worked with everybody from John Mayer to Fergie, No Doubt, Counting Crows, Black Crows, Sheryl Crow, and many, many others. And we worked with him to develop a series of plugins that capture his mixing approach. And there are 6 different plugins. A vocal plugin, a bass plugin, one for guitars, one for drums, one for cymbal and percussions, and one for strings and keys. The idea is that if you take the vocal plugin and you put it on your vocal, you right away should be at a point where your vocal sounds the way Jack Joseph Puig would process a vocal. And if you put it on the guitar, same thing. So they're very easy to use, and yet at the same time there's a lot going on behind the scenes to make them happen. Let me show you what these look like. This is the JJP drums plugin. So what I would do is I would put it on my drums, slap one on each drum, and for the kick I would select kick down here. For the snare I would select snare. Then I would set the sensitivity up here on the top left. Sensitivity is where you make sure you're going into the plugin at the right level based on the lead. The lead right next to it should be yellow. If it's black or green, you're too soft. If it's red, you're too hot. Real easy, but important, because there's a lot going on behind there. If there's a compressor and an EQ and a reverb and a delay, you want to make sure you're hitting them at the right level that Jack intended when he tweaked these. Then on the bottom, right below the sensitivity, you have the main section for each one of these plugins. The main section is the basic processing that Jack starts with. And then that main processing is controlled by this first fader here. Next to that fader are all the coloring faders, I like to call them. So for the kick drum, we have attack, sustain, attitude, punch, sub. Once I select the snare mode, I would also get the verb. So these are all the different things that Jack uses in order to color the tracks and actually make them bigger and fatter. And when you add them all together, that's where you get that sound that he's worked all these years to perfect and that identify him as his signature sound. So these faders and the main processing may change depending on which mode I choose and definitely depending on which plugin I'm using. So that's the drum plugin. The cymbal and percussion I put on my overheads. So down here, as you see, we have a mode for hi-hat, for overheads. And here on the bottom left, your main processing changed from the drum to the cymbals and percussion plugin. And these faders changed as well. You still have a main that controls how much of the main signal you have with this processing down at the bottom left. But then on this one, you have ambiance and attitude and punch and tone. So I did an experiment here. I took this track of mine and I put one plugin on, not even all the tracks, but on some of the tracks here. So the drum plugin on the kick, the snare bottom, then the cymbals and percussion on the overhead, the JJP vocal plugin on my vocal, the guitar plugin on the acoustic guitar, the bass on the bass, and another electric guitar also, the JJP guitar plugins. And I did nothing except set the sensitivities for each to make sure the input level was right. In other words, these are the default presets. And I want to play you what it sounds like with all the plugins on versus all the plugins bypassed. I think you're going to see it's pretty astounding. It's a tremendous difference. So here's what it sounds like with all the plugins bypassed.
From something that's good, yeah, to something that's great.
And with the plugins engaged.
From something that's good, yeah, to something that's great. And all things are right when you
Bypass again.
Whether it's day or night, and you got it all. You don't even know just how cool you.
All right, so that's pretty amazing to me. I mean, it sounds like a mixed track as soon as I engage the plugins, and like I said, I did nothing except set the sensitivity. So even if you're a pro mixer, within about 5 or 10 minutes, you can get a really solid sounding mix that sounds like it was mixed by Jack, more or less. I mean, this is going to sound very different than if I were to put the CLA Artist Signature plugins or the Maserati or the Kramer. They all sound fantastic, but they sound different from each other because they have different approaches. All right, let me show you a couple of these other plugins. We've got the guitars, with different modes down here: clean, rock, R&B, chug. And on here you'd have, as your coloring faders, you have the edge, warm, sustain, doubler, verb, all the different things you need to process a guitar, if you were to go with Jack's aesthetic and the way he processes guitar. And of course, in addition to the modes down here at the bottom, you also have presets. So you've got some of these presets are inspired by well-known mixes or artists that Jack has done. KU Guitar. KU refers to a very well-known artist that Jack has worked with recently. This is what the bass plugin looks like. You've got edge, attack, sub, presence, length, and there's no better way to describe them but these musical terms that Jack chose. A length, literally it lengthens the notes of your bass. It's pretty amazing. You should download the demo and check it out. Let's check out the vocal. Just for the sake of example, I'm going to solo the vocal here and play with a couple of these faders so you hear what they do. I mean, magic. I can't explain to you what magic is, but I'm going to play it to you so you can hear it.
From something that's good, yeah, to something that's great.
Space.
From something that's good, yeah, to something that's great.
So as you can see, these do exactly what they're supposed to based on this musical terminology. And again, behind each one of these plugins, there are many things happening. There are link clauses. So when you move one thing, there are probably several different things moving behind the scenes. There's EQ and there's compression. And we're building on a pretty long heritage of algorithms and DSP code and processors that Waves have had over the years. And Jack's 20 to 30 years worth of experience in his ears. And together, this is what we managed to come up with, and I think it's pretty fantastic. So one last time, I'm going to play you a bit of this track with the plugins bypass, then engage. Then as it goes, I'm going to bypass them again and engage them, and I think you'll be able to hear that it really does something special, and especially considering these are the default presets. I didn't sit here and tweak these to fit this. I mean, I pretty much brought these up. I picked a mode down here at the bottom, drum, kick drum for kick drum, snare for snare. In this case, male 2 for the vocals. And it sounds pretty well mixed. So let's give this a quick listen.
From something that's good, yeah, to something that's great.